to the Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services podcast. I'm Gail Lucas. I'm also the Division Chief for the Customer Support and Outreach Division here at DPS. Joining us on the podcast today is Will DeGrucci, a residential plan reviewer, who's going to talk to us about home renovations and decks and additions and good things like that. Welcome to the podcast, Will.
Thank you, Gail. It's great to be here.
You and I talk a whole lot about home renovations all the time because we always seem to have something breaking in our own homes.
Yes, we do. And your home is always got work to be done at it. You're always going to have a project, so to speak.
Right. Well, before we get into the projects, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at DPS, what your job entails?
Okay. Well, I'm a residential plan reviewer. I've been on board with the county for about 20 years. Our job is to make sure minimum code is met. We enforce the 2021 International Residential Code. So that's what our design criteria comes from when you submit for a permit here at Montgomery County.
Right. Well, then let's start at the beginning. When a homeowner begins planning a renovation, what fundamentals should they be paying attention to? What do they need to think about first?
Well, I mean, a lot of times with a homeowner, their budget is going to drive,
right,
the scope of work.
It always does.
And one of the big concerns is with homeowners is some do their research, some don't. I think when a homeowner is making their own application, our job as plan reviewers and working with the permit techs, we kind of lead the homeowner down the path of what you need, how to go about doing it. Some homeowners are more detailed than others, but we have numerous documents that DPS has to assist homeowners in their project, whether it's large scale or small scale.
One of the things that we are always stressing to customers is to do their research about the person doing the work. If you're hiring a contractor, make sure they're licensed. What else do they need to think about with respect to a contractor, first of all?
And that's a great question. When you use a licensed contractor in the state of Maryland that's licensed and certified and insured in the state of Maryland, you have a guarantee fund that the Department of the Home Improvement Commission has.
Right.
And every contractor pays into that when they renew their dues. That gives a homeowner the reassurance that if something is to go wrong, they can kind of file a claim, kind of similar to your insurance.
Right.
The state does an investigation at that level, and then the state determines whether they award a decision or a monetary amount back to the homeowner. So that's the big thing in using a licensed home improvement contractor that is licensed within the state of Maryland. There are a lot of benefits. No benefits when you use an unlicensed contractor.
Right.
Because at that point, it's a civil matter. He said, she said. So always look at using a licensed contractor.
Right.
Ask for their documents, the certificate of insurance, and that's a really, really good starting point.
Okay. Let's talk about application. You get your application in. All of our applications are filed electronically today. So once the application is in, the first stop for almost every application in DPS is zoning. Talk to us about why zoning needs to look at what you're doing.
And it's the first crucial step. So zoning's main function is to verify that if they're doing an addition, that they're working within their zone, their boundaries, their setbacks. Zoning is really meant for prohibiting you developing property line to property line. So a lot of things can come up in zoning, easements. Depending what zone you're in, you're going to have different setback criteria.
Right.
A lot of times when I get a homeowner that's just coming in, hey, Mr. DeGrucci, I'm looking at doing this type of project. I said, look, you're here in the office. Let's speak to a zoning official.
Okay.
If you get a verbal pre-approval, that's half the battle. People don't realize they want a big structure, but then they can't fit it on their property.
Right.
So that's the key component. If a homeowner could reach out to zoning first before even applying or looking into what they're doing, that's half their battle, because then they know,
Okay.
all right, zoning's going to approve me. The next
Okay.
step is designing and so forth.
And just to be clear, setback means how far you are from the property line, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And there are requirements for that.
Yes, it varies. Montgomery County has agricultural areas
Right.
where setbacks aren't even a problem. You've got a 10-acre parcel. But if you're in downtown Bethesda,
Right.
some R60 zones, you're restricted on what you can do. And believe it or not, there are lots that are real tiny, and they call those undersized lots, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a house on it. And so zoning plays the first step of any permit here at DPS.
Okay. We've already talked about how you need to submit your application electronically, but walk us through what the submittal package should contain. What do people need to make sure they're including?
Right. So the submittal package, it's large in regards to what's required. We don't break out a small project, a large project. We
Okay.
have one guidelines for additions and alterations.
Okay.
Smaller projects are quite different. As homeowners engage in doing work on their house, for a small basement renovation, pretty cookie cutter. You're not enlarging footprint.
Sure.
Simple floor plan, legal size paper, 11 by 17, drawn to
That's
scale.
important.
And indicating some key components, the ceiling height. That's a key component because it's an existing home. And when you finish an unfinished basement, some of those factors come into play. Are you doing a bedroom down there? Those are key factors.
Okay.
Life safety, emergency egress windows. Things of that would have to be indicated on the plans.
Okay.
Larger scale, much more involved, possible architect, engineer, like an addition. And then a new home. Not very many homeowners try to build their own home.
Right.
And that would clearly be much more information would be required.
But we do have some that
Yeah,
want to
we
act
do.
as their own contractor.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Right. Any other practical advice? I'm doing a kitchen renovation. What do I need to think about doing?
I always tell homeowners that sometimes, how many contractors have you interviewed? One,
Okay.
right? And then I'll go into detail because homeowners are visual folks.
Okay.
You show them something on the computer. Yep, my house looks just like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm looking to do. So when they can visualize something, then they can have a better understanding, both from the requirement side and then from the designer side. But one of the biggest factors is homeowners tend to not really understand the permit process because they've never done it.
Okay.
Not every homeowner is as good as some with the computers.
Sure.
So those are key issues we have when we're working with homeowners. And we try to explain, look, by doing it in certain ways, you take less of a chance of having your plans denied. If your plans are denied, it's not the end of the world. You make the corrections and resubmit.
Okay. One of the things that changed with the new codes are energy requirements and electrification.
Yes.
Hard word for me to say, in Montgomery County.
Yes.
So what are the things that people need to think about with that?
Part of the new submittal guidelines for residential projects, if you do an addition,
Okay.
you're increasing footprint. You're increasing the demand for heating and cooling.
Sure.
Your existing system's typically not going to be able to handle that demand.
Okay.
So the county has a climate action plan, and our job is to make sure we receive the minimum information. So part of the climate action plans requires certain types of dimmers and certain types of electrical switches. But the big difference is showing us how you're going to heat and cool that.
Okay.
And that
Okay.
requires kind of like, it's a mechanical engine. It's really an energy review, but we're analyzing the mechanical system
Okay.
to make sure the new addition is going to be able to be heated and cooled at a comfort level. And believe it or not, people don't realize the code does indicate that you must maintain heat at a certain degree.
Okay.
So
What's
those are
the
key
degree?
factors.
How warm do I have to keep my house?
Your house has to be, it's 68 degrees.
Okay.
typically 3 foot in from the exterior wall.
Okay.
So that's sometimes why you'll see ductwork and things and vents on the
Okay.
exterior wall.
Okay.
So that is the minimum. Believe it or not, you do not have to put air conditioning in your house. That's
Yes, I
an
do.
interesting thing. Yeah. With the weather coming this weekend, it's
Right.
going to be hot.
What else do we need to think about when we are talking about an addition? One of the things that we have talked a lot about at DPS is sprinklering our home. When is that required?
Another great questions. And a lot of times we'll get just a cold call about, hey, I got a permit for my addition. Do I need to put sprinklers in it?
Mm-hmm.
And the criteria for sprinklers is if you took all of the area from exterior wall to exterior wall and you demolished 50%
Okay.
of all of the walls, okay, not counting the basement.
Okay.
So if it's a 2-story home, you take the top floor off,
Right.
we're right at 50%.
Right.
If you exceed that threshold, the plan reviewers will advise you, hey, sprinklers are going to be required. And that's one good thing that we do really good here at DPS.
Okay.
We have a senior level residential plan review staff, and we cover all of the bases with the homeowner because the last thing they want to do is be told by the inspector, hey, now you got to sprinkle your home.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, there are times where homeowners exceed the amount of demolished, the amount of the house they demolished, and therefore they do have to put sprinklers after the fact. So we really do a good job trying to flag that because that is an additional cost to the homeowner,
Right.
in doing the new addition.
One of the other things that's new this year or new in recent months is limits on demolition, when you need a demolition permit, even if you're doing an addition. So talk to us about the new demolition rules.
That's a really good question. When we now have legislation in the Montgomery County Building Code that
Okay.
actually limits the amount of demolishment you can do of a single family dwelling.
Okay.
And it's not as complex as people think. The county has a policy of 67% of your
Okay.
first floor walls
Okay.
can be demolished. So that means you must maintain 33% of your first floor walls. And the way that we measure that is exterior wall to exterior wall. So we measure the total length of all of the walls,
Mm-hmm.
and then we look at the demolish amount of what you're demolishing. And then we also analyze what is being retained. And we have a good matrix that we actually put out to the homeowners, the builders, and so forth, that it lists linear foot of wall, linear foot of demo, and linear foot of what's being retained. And therefore, it's a simple mathematical calculation.
Okay.
Am I above 67%
Okay.
or am I, below that?
And that can throw you into a whole different category of permit and a whole different category of requirements. Yes.
And a great question, because that throws you into a new home.
Okay.
And when you have to qualify for a new home, numerous other restrictions come into play.
Right.
Full-blown sediment control, land development permits, bonds.
Right.
And then one of the things is zoning implications under today's standards, right? If you're thrown into a new home, maybe, possibly, you can't build what you want to build.
Right.
And when that all happens, it definitely throws the budget out of whack for people. But the biggest
Absolutely.
concern is the fact is additional time, because now you have to pull in a civil engineer.
Right.
So, but these are great questions, and we face these things every day with projects that are either too big or
Right.
whatever, and we try to give our customers good guidance.
And we have a process called pre-design consultation for residential that anyone can participate in. It's free of charge to the customer, right? They can come in, they can talk through all of these issues, talk about what they want to do, talk about the implications of what they want to do, right?
Yeah, it's something that I guess within the last 2-3 years that we've done here.
Right.
And I usually sit in on a lot of these meetings, and to be totally honest, they're great. They're able to be at the comfort of their own home. They pull
Right.
their engineer or architect
Right.
in on the meeting, and like you said, it doesn't cost them anything, and they get a free hour. And then we pull in our technical staff, right? We pull in. Um, Usually they fill out a questionnaire. All right, I'm looking to get these questions answered. I have some land development and zoning. We even pull in a representative from WSSC.
Okay.
And I cannot tell you how many people say, this is great.
Right.
I got all my questions answered, from plumbing to mechanical to zoning to sediment control and land development, even well and septic.
Okay.
So we really try to encourage it. I really think that homeowners and even the design professionals appreciate that meeting because they get a lot of their questions up front and out the door.
Let's flip the script a little bit and talk about when you don't need a permit. What kind of work can I do as a homeowner in my house where I wouldn't need to come to DPS for a permit?
Typically, reshingling roofs,
Okay.
siding, windows, doors, if the openings are not modified. So
Okay.
pull and replace.
Okay.
Okay. Bathrooms, pull and replace. Okay. Kitchens, pull and replace. But as soon as you relocate fixtures,
Okay.
I want my stove now over there. That gets into a little bit more, and then permits would be required. Those are typical things that we kind of look at restore repair,
Right.
but it's restore repair that doesn't require a building permit. Believe it or not, we have a significant list of what requires a permit and what doesn't on our website. But there's always areas where people call, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that.
Mhm.
And you try to walk them through the process
Right.
and so forth.
Well, thank you, Will, for joining us today on the podcast. All valuable information. Folks can go to our website for submittal guidelines, for information about inspections and all of those things. Yes. So, all good information. And we always encourage folks to take advantage of our pre design process. Any tips on you said at the beginning, or you were telling me before we started recording, that you had 3 F's. What are those 3 F's for
So for our
deck?
deck, I kind of like to tell people DPS in Montgomery County is the best in the DMV. And the reason I
Okay.
say that is I see the effort all our staff makes every day. We have a pre-engineered deck packet, and it
Okay.
allows homeowners to come in just with a site plan. And it's an installation manual. I mean, everybody's put a bookcase together and
Right.
they read the directions. And in the process of getting your deck permit, once you've got it, it's typically 3 inspections: a footing inspection, a framing inspection, and a final. And sometimes I'll work with homeowners. I said, look, we kind of label it the 3 F's, okay, but in a good way.
Okay.
And, people can look at the 3 F's and think about school, but the 3, and once you've elaborated that, it's 3 simple inspections.
Okay.
But it does require them to monitor the job, right?
Right. Right.
How well a homeowner is a construction manager, so to speak,
Right.
because they're taking on these weekend warrior projects. So once you kind of explain things to them in a simplistic way, they get it. They're like, okay, that's not that hard. I can do
Okay.
that.
All right. Is there any last tip that you want to give to our viewers, to our listeners, about doing home renovations or alterations?
Yeah, I think your research at the very beginning, right?
Okay.
Pre-planning, understanding what you want, whether it's a kitchen or an addition. Most homeowners with an addition do have some sort of contractor involved
Okay.
or whatever. But we do get homeowners that will get their own permit and they become like the general contractor. But
Right.
then they don't have all the knowledge to deal with the plumber and the mechanical guy and the electrical guy. So my best advice is do your work up front. Don't just choose one contractor. Get 3 estimates.
Okay.
Make sure they're all licensed contractors. And I'm a type of person, if I have a big ticket item, I'm going to put the work in to be able to see where I am, where I need to go.
Right.
And I think if we could educate homeowners on that part, they have a better understanding that it's not so hard getting a permit, and it's a collaboration with DPS. It's
Okay.
a team effort, and we try to present that to the homeowners. It's not us against the contractors, and homeowners are typically really, really receptive to understanding the importance of why we need permits.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. DeGrucci, for joining us today on the podcast. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. It's important to know when you need a permit and when you don't need a permit and why you need a permit. Remember, DPS is here to help you, our customers, succeed. You can always contact us through our customer service center at MC311, dial 240-777-0311, or you can come into our office at 2425 Reedy Drive on the 7th floor. We're here Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m., and there's always someone here that can help you and answer questions and point you in the right direction. Again, thank you for joining us today. Got an idea for a topic for a podcast, or do you have a question that you'd like to see answered on the podcast? We want to hear from you. Email your ideas and questions to dps.podcast@montgomerycountymd.gov. Please help us spread the word about the podcast. Share it with your friends and your neighbors, and subscribe so that you always get the latest episode. I'm Gail Lucas. Remember, DPS is your project partner.
This podcast is brought to you by County Cable Montgomery, your source for news and information from the Montgomery County government. Connect with us via cable, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for County Cable MoCo.